Hello there, yes. Well, good grief. It didn't rain, and good grief, it might not rain again. Unbelievable. Anyway, lots of unbelievable things were happening yesterday. Lots of very interesting feedback on change of First Minister in Scotland, most of which was appallingly racist. Yes, that whole sort of transphobe racist thing was out in full force. That Venn diagram isn't quite a circle, but by God, it's really close, isn't it? So it was kind of summed up in its own particular right by this, I think, from GB News, which is the astounding news that neo-fascist parties in Italy, which anyone that knows anything about fascism knows that they can trace their roots very much directly back to, fascists, and Benito Mussolini have, come out and shown their support for, Benito Mussolini. Yes, astounding to anybody that isn't GB News. Next up, folks, we'll be hearing that the BNP have some links to Mosley in the 1950s. Gosh, yes, but for me the big one yesterday was an intriguing piece in the Telegraph from Nick Timothy. Yes, you may recall Nick Timothy, the advisor to Theresa May. Strong and stable, that's her, yes. How long ago that seems, doesn't it? Yeah, but Nick Timothy, who was writing a piece about all the things that need to be done. And link down below, please do read it. It's quite intriguing because it's almost there, right? In the sense that there's an awful lot of very sensible things in there in terms of moving to net zero and in huge government investments and things like that. However, it's not going to happen, is it? I mean, even if, you could kind of squint at this and sort of suggest that maybe if a incoming conservative style government, or indeed very right-wing Labour government, was to try and do this, that it might actually work. Except, of course, you know full well that it won't, because, well, if you think back to Nick Timothy when he was advising Theresa May, he undoubtedly was the person who probably had that bold idea about, tackling injustice. Yeah, the thing that never happened. Why? Because it's the Conservative Party and it's the British establishment, and the one thing that they can't do and haven't been able to do for certainly 20 years now is actually get anything done. I'm going to remind you of those burning injustices, right? This is from Theresa May's premier initial speech. That means fighting against the burning injustice that, if you're born poor, you will die on average 9 years earlier than others. Yeah, that number's gone up now. If you're black, you're treated more harshly by the criminal justice system than if you're white. Yeah, that's still the case. But remember, we now have a media that insists that actually the only people that suffer from racism in the UK are white people. If you're a white working class boy, you're less likely than anyone else in Britain to go to university. Yeah, you see, just like that. And again, that hasn't changed in the slightest. If you're at a state school, you're less likely to reach the top professions than if you're educated privately. Yes, but remember, we can't have any form of reform of private education, remember that, because it's unfair on some people somewhere, possibly. Yeah, if you're a woman, you'll earn less than a man. If you suffer from mental health problems, there's not enough help to hand. Yes, indeed. And indeed, if you suffer from mental health problems, well, the government will take more money away from you just to make sure you get better. If you're young, you'll find it harder than ever before to own your own home. Yes, you see, words undoubtedly sponsored by Nick Timothy. Vision of the future. Any of that. Can you remember Theresa May tackling any of those things whatsoever? No, she was way too busy with Brexit bastards, just to use a phrase from John Major, within her own party. None of what Nick Timothy is suggesting is in any way possible with the current Conservative Party or the current Labour Party or the current establishment in this country. I mean, it would be a brilliant, bold, decisive plan, and I'd happily vote for it. I'd even hold my nose and suggest that Michael Gove being on board might be an idea, but it won't happen because these people cannot move away from the notion that the next time their small dividend comes up in 3 months' time, if that's going to be affected, even if it means saving the country economically, they're not going to do it. Because also yesterday there was a lot of news about Thames Water going under. metaphorically or otherwise. Yeah, so we get this, right? Thames water collapse could trigger trust-style borrowing crisis, will Whitehall officials feel. Yeah, okay. Now, there are various voices that say, well, let's just renationalise it. Let's just swipe, that entire thing away and be done with it, a bit like the railways. But you'll notice, even with the Labour Party, they can't quite manage to do that. And they're quite happy just simply to burden the state with more and more and more expenses rather than actually taking bold, decisive action, which will improve things. You can have revolutions without blood on the streets, or you can decide not to have a revolution, but then you might actually then end up with blood on the streets. It's entirely these people's choice. They could get on with it if they really wanted to. Yeah, think about anything that's actually managed to happen in the 20th century. When there's been a crisis and people have decided to change things, they've decided to change things. Look at the Manhattan project, yeah? If you decide you want to invest very, very heavily in building an atomic bomb, you can do it in 2 years. Just need to put your backs into it. But this lot don't have backs, and they certainly aren't going to put any effort into anything. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. And whilst the world burns, they will merely complain about the smell. Do have a lovely Tuesday if you can. Go and enjoy it. Enjoy that sun. Oh, yeah.